Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by. We're gonna see my predictions and picks for the UFC Fight Night event, Tybura Spivac, back in the UFC Apex. But before that, let's do a quick review of how my last weekend went with the Abu Dhabi event. So there were five parlays that I hit. I entered with 30K pesos, Argentine pesos, took out 100K, profit of 70K, around 70K, a return on investment of 233%. On my predictions, I hit it on 10 fights out of 13, which gave me a 77% effectiveness. I used, of course, the top two parlays that you see there. I used that to get back what I answered, of course, the 30K that I answered at the beginning, and the ones on the bottom I looked for value. Of course, some names that are going to be repeated are the ones as Umar, Gaziev, Shara, Azamat. Those were really confident picks that I had for the night. So they're spread out with those value parlays that brought me that profit. So it was a really good weekend for me. And of course, on Friday we had PFL. If you connected on my Twitch stream, go ahead, of course, and give that a follow. I hit on 9 of 10 predictions and enter with 2.5K, 113.5K with a profit of 11K. Here you can see my only parlay that I played for the PFL event and hit on seven fights. So it was a really good weekend all around. So without much said, let's go on for the UFC Apex event, Tybura Spivac 2. This event, it really had ups and downs. A lot of fights, were canceled. We had a new fight announced about 2 days ago, which was Chris Gutierrez versus Lee or Le. So it was a pretty messy card, to be honest, to organize. And apart from that, we had the weigh-ins today, and three fighters did not make weight, and we're gonna see that when we analyze each of the fights. So going to the first fight of the night, let's go to the women's strawweight division. We're gonna see another rematch between these two ladies. We have Stephanie Luciano versus Talita Alencar 2, we can say. So the first fight, both fighters were fighting for the contender series, of course, trying to get that contract for UFC, and they went to a draw. So what does this mean? Basically, two first rounds went to Talita Alencar. She took Stephanie Luciano down really quickly and really with ease, to be honest, and took those 2 rounds thanks to the control she had on the floor, on the ground. But on the third round, she gassed out, and Stephanie Luciano just started that engine and started making all those combinations, those beautiful combinations, almost knocking Talita out, which gave the judges a 10-8. The judges gave it a 10-8. So this gave it a 28-28, giving it an official draw. So the two styles, basically, Talita, like I mentioned before, she's a world jiu-jitsu champion. She's best known for her grappling and, of course, of her ground game. But in the striking phase, she's really not that good. She's not that. She's pretty easy to hit, to be honest. Which in Luciano, what we see in her is basically she is a really good striker. That's her the best that Luciano has to showcase in the octagon. And there are some facts that I don't want to miss out. Toledo's pretty small for the division, only 5'1" against Luciano, which is 5'6", and Luciano has a much greater reach advantage with 65.5 inches against 58.5 inches. My prediction here is Luciano wins it, maybe by knockout, maybe by decision. Luciano is only 24. She's still really young, and I think she will get better and better each fight. Of course, last fight Luciano went against Talita, but I think she had all this time in the gym to get much better in her takedown defense, and if she showcased that in the octagon and she stuffs some of the takedown attempts from Talita, that's gonna kill Talita mentally, and Luciano's gonna be able to outstrike her, and just take this away with her. I really have confidence in Luciano. I think she can win this, get that revenge back, and show the UFC why she deserves to be here. So yeah, my prediction is Stephanie Luciano, but of course Salida is really really good on the ground game. So next fight, one of the most um, high level fights, if you want to say, for this card is Jarno Errens versus Youssef Zalal. They come from the featherweight division. So basically, Youssef Zalal, he had that first um, trip with UFC, if you want to say it. He didn't went that well, got cut, went to the regional phase, won all the fights in the regional phase, got back to the UFC and won thanks to a rear naked choke against Billy Q, which Billy Q is really really good in the ground game as well. But Youssef Zalal showed levels to it. So Youssef Zalal, to be honest, he was known more for his striking in his first time around in the UFC, but now I think he's a more complete fighter with only 27 years old. This guy has a really, really bright future. I think he's going to be in the rankings someday. I really, really like him. He's showing every time that he's getting better and better. On the other hand, we have Jarno Errens coming from a victory against Steven Nguyen, which I don't think is a really, really good fight, to be honest. But before that, his other two fights in the UFC, he lost. Jarno Errens is the typical Netherlands boy. Kickboxing is his strength, to be honest. He's a really, really good kickboxer. He showcases a lot of good kicks, which of course can and will create damage on Youssef Salal. That's for sure. I think that's a guarantee. John Lawrence may take a round out due to the good output that John Lawrence puts out. The combinations and the low kicks maybe going to the high kicks. But taking that out, I think Yusuf Zalal is better all around. I think he's better in the ground game, in the grappling game, and in the striking. There's not much difference. I think maybe Yusuf Zalal might be a little bit better than John Lawrence, but he's got to be very, very careful with the counterattacks from Jarno Arons. He has a really, really good technique. But my pick here, and I say it with confidence, I'm going with Yusuf Zalal, and I think it's going to go to the decision. Next fight up, we have on the heavyweights, Carl Williams versus Jonathan Diniz. Two clash of styles. Carl Williams, of course, known because of his wrestling. Today in the heavyweight, we see that there are more and more fighters with their strength in wrestling, which before we really didn't see that much. I think, the one of the pioneers on that phase was of course Cormier, which was champion, and of course his successor, which is John Jones, the GOAT. But to be honest, that's only the only thing that Carl Williams has to propose in the octagon. His grappling, his strength on the grappling side, and of course the takedown and the control he has on the ground. He doesn't do that much damage on his fights. On the other hand, we have Jonathan Deniz, one of the best kickboxers, if you want to say, coming up in this division in the UFC. His last fight, he won to Austin Lane thanks to a, a combination, a left hook. I mean, he never saw the defeat, so that's a point in favor of Janata. But we saw in that Austin Lane fight that Janata has no ground game at all, no takedown defense at all. So, knowing that the UFC Apex uses an octagon a little bit smaller, I think this fight goes to Carl Williams. I think it can go to a 2-1 maybe. Jonathan Dennis may find that sucker punch and maybe knock Carl Williams out, but it's a really really good probability. But I'm not really high on any of these two fighters. I think none of them will get to the rankings. So to be honest, my pick here is Carl Williams, but I say it with low confidence. But I think he's going to be able to take Jonathan down at least 2 rounds, and at least take those 2 rounds where he takes him down. So next fight up, we have Carl Rosa versus Pani Kianzad from the bantamweight division. in women's MMA. I think Carl Rosa is better in all aspects of the game. We saw her last fight against Renaldana, which was a really, really well fought out fight, really competitive fight. Carl Rosa used a lot of the low kicks, and this changed the whole game of Renaldana. It really, really, really compromised her legs, which Renaldana, of course, today, I think she's a top five in the category. I would put her there at least. I mean, she's a really, really high boxing, fighter. And Pani Kianza, is well known for her striking. But I think Carl Rosa is a little bit better in her striking. The only thing I don't like from Carl Rosa is on the striking side, she's a little bit static. She doesn't move a lot. She doesn't move her head a lot. So it's a pretty easy target to hit. And Pani Kianza, knowing her kickboxing, her Swedish kickboxing, she's a fighter that's always active, always moving around. She may be finding those holes in Carl Rosa's game, but I think anyways, Carl Rosa has much more power than Pani Kianza. I think Carl Rosa is much better as well in the grappling and of course in the ground game. So if this fight goes to the ground or maybe hits the grappling and the fences, Carl Rosa has a lot more strength than Pani Kianza. So my pick here is going to Carl Rosa, and I think she wins by decision. Next fight, we have Charalampus Gregorio versus Toshiyami Kazama. Um, so two of the worst fighters, to be honest, in the division, bantamweight. None of them have won yet in UFC. Kazama has two fights in UFC, both lost by knockout. Charalampus has one fight in the UFC, lost against Chad and Hellinger, which, to be honest, is not that great of a fighter. So Kazama, of course, is known because of his ground game. He has a really, really good jiu-jitsu. But on the other side, we have Charalampus, which he trains with Aljo Sterling and he trains with Marab. So, he's training with high, high level. Um, but the thing that I really doubt from Charalampus is that he doesn't have a good gas tank. We saw that in his last fight. He gassed out a little bit because Charalampus brings in the first round. He hits you with the kitchen. He hits you with everything he has. He tries to knock you out on the first round. And I think he might knock Kazama out. Kazama comes from two, of course, defeats via knockout. And we saw that Kazama's striking is really, really, really bad. He hits the combinations, the one twos maybe, but leaves the hands out, the mummy effect, That's gonna leave a lot of holes in Kazama's game. So I think Gregorio can take advantage of that and maybe knock him out. If he's not going to knock him out, I think he's going to do much more damage, Gregorio than Kazama if it goes to the judges. So yeah, my pick here is Gregorio, but it's a really, really low level fight, to be honest, for the division. I really do not like this fight, but yeah, my pick is Gregorio. Going to the next fight, starting off the main card, we have Yana Santos against Chelsea Chandler. Chelsea Chandler did not make weight by 5 pounds. It's like she didn't even try to cut weight. That's incredible. I think this is the last fight for her in UFC. The organization has shown before that they do not have a lot of patience with fighters that do not make weight various times. So I think this is the last fight that we see of Chelsea Chandler. On the other side, we have Yana Santos. My pick will be Yana Santos. Um, we saw her in the weigh-ins today that she is really, really well on the physical side. She looks really, really good. And of course, Chelsea Chandler, I'm guessing that she had a really rough weight cut, which that may come into play in the octagon. She may get tired out, Chelsea Chandler. She may be a little bit weak on the chin. So yeah, I think Yana Santos has a much better striking than Chelsea Chandler. The only thing that makes me doubt is that, she comes from three losses, three straight losses, Yana Santos. But um, if it goes to the ground, I think Chelsea Chandler can control her pretty well. Yana Santos, I don't think she has a lot uh, of a ground game to get back up. But I think Chelsea Chandler does have a lot of strength on the grappling side and on the ground game. So she may take away this fight. I used to pick Chelsea Chandler, but after the weigh-ins from today, she did not look good at all. So I'm going with Yana Santos. I think she comes back, looks for that victory again, and finds it. I think it's gonna go to decision as well. No one's gonna knock anyone out in that fight. So next fight we have Chris Gutierrez against Quang Lee. Thank you, Quang Lee, for accepting this fight around 2 days ago. He was gonna fight for the Contender Series in September, a month away now. But UFC called and he accepted. But unfortunately, his opponent is Chris Gutierrez, which I think Chris Gutierrez is one of the best kickboxers that the division has. He's always there, always trying to get to the rankings. He was ranked before as well. I really, really love Chris Gutierrez's style. He's really, really good managing the distance with his kicks. He's really good as well using the low kicks, maybe the body kicks as well. So to be honest, this guy has really, really good striking game. He lost his last fight against Yadong Song, which to me is a top 10 in the category. So nothing bad there, to be honest. And Quang Lee has been fighting out in LFA, knocking people out. Of course, it's not the competition that Chris Gutierrez has been fighting. And I think this fight, Chris Gutierrez is going to show Quang Lee what UFC is all about. I think he's not going to knock Quang Lee out. Um, we saw Quang Lee in his other fights. This guy is a really, really aggressive guy. He's really good, of course, in the striking game, but he always looks for that knockout, and that may gas him out. And Chris Gutierrez manages time perfectly. This guy understands that these are 5 minute rounds, and he's going to take advantage of all those 5 minutes. And I think it's going to go to the decision, and the decision will be Chris Gutierrez, maybe a 2-1 or maybe a 3-0. But I think Chris Gutierrez has a lot of intelligence in the ring, and it's going to show on Saturday. And Quang Lee is going to, basically understand that there's levels to this game, and Chris Gutierrez is in a much much higher level than Quang Lee. So my confident pick is Chris Gutierrez for this fight. We go ahead to the next fight. Really, really, really fun fight to watch. Danny left hand to God Barlow against Nikolai Veretennikov. Nikolai making his debut as well, just like Quang Lee. He comes from regional scene, not really good competition, but knocking people out, also submitting. Um, his style basically is he's a pretty active fighter. He looks a lot of he looks for a lot of takedowns, which I think is his strength. His wrestling is his strength. He also strikes and he has a really good strike game, to be honest. So he's a pretty complete fighter. He's good in all aspects, but he's not excellent in any of them. Of course, it's his debut, and he is training with Uros Medic, which Uros Medic was going to fight against Danny Barlow, but that fight got canceled. So Nikolai, you know, um, took the place that Uros left. So I think they already know what Danny Barlow is all about. But Danny Barlow is all about that left hand. Danny Barlow, I think, is going to knock Nikolai out. He's levels above Nikolai on the striking game. And I think Danny Barlow is levels above many fighters in the UFC in terms of the striking game. He's one of the most polished and most technical strikers that the division has to see. I think in the future we will see Danny Barlow in the rankings. His last fight against Josh Quinlan knocked him out in the third round, I think it was. So yeah, I don't know. My only doubt is if Nikolai gets that takedown. I'm not really sure about Danny Barlow's takedown defense, if it's good or not, and if his ground game is good or not. So that's my only doubt if Nikolai looks for that. I think Danny Barlow is going to knock him out anyways, or if it doesn't knock him out, it might go to the judges and maybe go a 2-1. But yeah, I think this fight is made for Danny Barlow to win, and I really, really like him. So that's my pick, and I say it with confidence. Next fight, we have Chepe Mariscal against Damon Jackson. Chepe Mariscal missed weight. I think it was 3 pounds. He looked really, really rubbish in the weigh-ins. Let me see if I can show you. Um, I want to try to show you how he went. Look at this. This is how he walked to the scale. You can see this guy is about to pass out. He is in Heaven's Gate, to be honest. This guy is about to go to sleep. He's dragging himself. He does not look good at all. It was a really, really bad weight cut for him. So my pick used to be Chepe, but seeing this weigh-in, this is gonna affect him a lot in the fight. He's not gonna have cardio. His chin is gonna be really, really weak, and he might not be that pressure guy that we all know of him. Chepe brings it all to the table every time he comes to the fight. He has a dog in him. He has 3 fights in UFC, all victories. Jack Jenkins, Trevor Peak. Well, Jack Jenkins got injured, so that doesn't really count. And Morgan Charrier. So he's a really good striker, makes a lot of pressure, goes always forward, tries to cut that distance. He's not that tall for the division as well. Um, he's pretty much smaller than Jackson, 5'7" against 5'11". But the reach is pretty similar, 69 against 71 inches. Chepe is a good all-around fighter. I mean, he has really good takedown defense. He has really good takedown as well, and he has good ground game. But I think it's the pressure that he brings to the table. It's the striking that he brings to the table as well. On the other side, we have Damon the Leech Jackson. We all know this veteran, this guy. I really like him to win in this fight. Now seeing the weigh-in, I think Damon Jackson might take advantage of the aggression that Chepe brings to the octagon. Maybe look for that tackle, that takedown. Of course, taking advantage of Chepe coming forward, taking him to the floor. And if it goes to the floor, Damon Jackson will be on you. He's the leech. He will not get off of you. If you give him your back 1 second, he's going to get on. He's going to latch on. And that's what I love about Damon Jackson. And he never quits. This guy will bring it all 3 rounds. So last fight, he won against Alexander Hernandez. So my pick here will be Damon Jackson. It's the only dog that I'm picking of the night, and I really like him to win. Now that we saw the weigh-in, I used to like him before. I picked Chepe because I think Chepe is a better all-around fighter. But seeing the weigh-in, seeing how Chepe came to the weigh-in, that's really bad, and that's going to affect him a lot in the fight having a bad weight cut. So I think Damon Jackson wins this. It might be by submission. It might be by decision. So yeah, my pick here will be Damon Jackson. And going to the last fight of the night, we're going Marcin Tybura against Sergey Spivac. This fight, everyone wanted to see again. No, I'm joking. To be honest, they fought around 3 years ago, or maybe more, or 4 years ago. I'm not really sure. So you know, they had a lot of fights in between the last fight of them. And the last fight of Marcin Tybura, he won against Tai Tuivasa by a rear naked choke. Before that, lost to Tom Aspinall. Won against Ivanov, which is not anymore in the UFC, and won against Romanov, which is not really good. Sergey Spivak lost against Earl Gahn, which is basically the best striker the division has, but won against Derek Lewis, KO'd Sakai, KO'd Greg Hardy, which Greg Hardy is not anymore in the division. Their styles are pretty similar. Two aggressive fighters that will go to body combat. They like to grapple. They like to throw their way onto you. You know, they're pretty big guys for the division as well. I think Sergey Spivak is going to the best moment of his career. He's only 29, pretty young for the division, so he's making really big leaps in terms of getting better. And I think it's going to showcase in this fight. Tybura is 38. He is, I think it's going to the last fights of his career in UFC at least. He might have 2 or 3 more in the tank, not much more. I think Spivak has much more future, of course, than Tybura, and Spivak can um, showcase a good fight here. It's going to be really fought out. It's going to be 5 rounds. We're going to see who gasses out first. I'm not sure who it's going to gas out first, but I think Spivak is going to be much better in terms of the striking game. He's making better improvements there, and he will make the right adjustments to try to get this victory won that way in terms of striking. So my pick here is Spivac. I think his ceiling is much higher than Tybura. He might never be a champion, but I think he's gonna get his revenge against Tybura since the last fight Tybura won. So those are my picks for UFC Fight Night Tybura Spivac. And before we close out, I just want to show you my underdog of the week, which of course is going to be the Leech, Damon Jackson. Like we just saw, Chepe had a really bad weight cut. So all eyes on this fight because I think the underdog is going to win it. And lock of the week, Yusef Zalal. I think, like I mentioned before, this guy will be ranked sooner than later. I really, really like him. He's a well-rounded fighter all around. So those are my underdog and lock of the week. And these are my parlays. I have 8 parlays this week. I'm entering with 9.5K pesos. The most confident parlay would be Zalal Barlow Gutierrez. I use this parlay basically to uh, recuperate all the money that I'm placing on these parlays. And the 7 other are going to be my value parlays. They're going to be the ones that are going to look for that value. Of course, many of the names that are repeating in some of the parlays are like, for example, well, of course, Zalal is going to be in much of the parlay since he's my most confident pick. But you're also going to see Damon Jackson. You're also going to see Gregorio. I think Gregorio gonna get that maybe knockout. The only 50-50 fight is Carl Williams Denis, so that's why I have one in each of the parlays. So one's gonna die, one of those parlays is gonna die, and the other one not. If the Denis wins, it's gonna be by knockout, so that's why I have it in the parlay with knockout. If Carl Williams wins, I think he's gonna win by decision. So we'll see that. And another confident pick is basically Carl Rosa. I really, really like this chick to win. And of course, Spivac and Luciano. Not that high of a confidence, but I think they should get this victory. So with that being said, thank you very much for stopping by. Hope you liked the video. Please give it a like. Please give it a comment if you want. Of course, follow me on Twitter and follow me on Twitch where I stream every week. And we of course see each of the fighter and their previous fights and analyze each of the fights and as well create parlays in the live stream. So with that being said, thank you very much, and I'll see you next week since we have a big, big event coming. See you all. Thank you very much.